In this video, we're going to show you to install the inner tie rod end on your Hummer H3 located behind your front wheels. With the vehicle raised and supported, I'm going to go ahead and remove our center cap. You can use a flathead screwdriver or a trim tool, and you're going to come in right behind here and gently pry out and pop that off. Using a 19mm socket, I'm going to go ahead and loosen and remove our lug nuts. Go ahead and grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. On our outer tie rod end here, we have a 21mm nut. We're going to use our deep socket here to go ahead and loosen that. And we're going back and forth to try and loosen this up. Now that we have the nut removed, we're now going to go ahead and strike the knuckle here to release our outer tie rod end. There it is. Now before we pop this out, we now want to come over here to the jam nut. We want to loosen this jam nut. We're going to use a pair of large pliers here. And on the inboard portion right here on our inner tie rod, we're going to use a 15mm wrench to hold the inner tie rod. All right, we have broken that free. And we had soaked this with some rust penetrant and let it soak in for a little bit. Pop out our outer tie rod. Now when we go to unthread this here, we want to count the full amount of revolutions it takes to unthread this. So when we install the outer tie rod end, we can get the base preliminary setting for our alignment. So let's go ahead and start this. "19 revolutions. Now that's for our vehicle. Yours is probably going to be different, so go ahead and count the full amount, and then you want to go ahead and mark it somewhere. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take a yellow crayon here, and I'm just going to put 19 on this here. That way there I don't forget it. Remove your jam nut. Set that aside. On the outer portion of our steering rack boot, there's a clamp right here. We want to use our pliers. We're going to pinch that clamp and slide that off. You also want to inspect these clamps. If they're rusted, falling apart, or really, really thin, you want to go ahead and replace these. You can use something as simple as a worm clamp to go ahead and secure that. Now on the opposite side of the vehicle, I'm going to go ahead and grab the wheel and just continue to crank that. That's going to push that inner tie rod further out to its maximum point. Now if you follow your rack boot from the outside over here in, it's going to bring you to this clamp right here. Now there's normally a metal band clamp here securing this. It has been replaced or serviced at one point or another, and right now there's just a tie strap here. It's a plastic tie strap. If you have the metal clamp here, it's a one-time use, and what you would do is you would take a small thin screwdriver or something, and you would kind of get into that clamp, and you would tap it with a screwdriver and pop the end of it off. And then you could remove that metal band clamp, and you would simply replace it with a plastic tie strap, just as we see here. Now because we already have a plastic tie strap, I'm simply going to use a pair of cutters. We want to be careful not to damage the boot. I'm going to clean up the surface of the rack right around here. I want to go ahead and work that boot out. Go ahead and grab that boot, and we want to twist it and slide that off. Now your inner tie rod comes over here to the union area, and there is a hex side over here, or a 6-sided nut. Simply grab some large pliers and we want to loosen that. We're going to pull this down. All right, once we have that loose, go ahead and spin that off. Go ahead and take the new inner tie rod, and you want to go ahead and thread that on. Go ahead and use your pliers. We're going to tighten this. You want to make sure this is good and tight. Now I want to take the supplied grease and we want to get it into this unit right here. So you're going to be moving this around to get that grease worked in there. So go ahead and put some in here. Push it in with your glove or your bare hands, whatever you want to do. And just work this around. Get that pushed into the top. Always recommend using everything that they give you. At this point here, ready to install our rack boot. Remove the jam nut. Set that aside. Go ahead and slide that boot up there. I'm going to go ahead and take my replacement wire tie and kind of get that inboard, kind of get that ready to go. Let's go ahead and work that boot up and over. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab that other tire and I'm going to crank that in. That should help us get that boot closer to the rack end here, which is perfect. Go ahead and work that boot onto that rack. Make sure that it's fully seated all the way around. Grab that tie strap. Make sure it's on the portion right there on the inside. I do like to grab my pliers and just give this a little tug. Make sure that that's nice and snug. Then cut off the excess. Go ahead and install the rack boot clamp. Install your jam nut. Going to install the outer tie rod. So go ahead and pull this out a little bit. Now I want to thread this on a full 19 revolutions. That is going to set us up with the preliminary setting. You will want to go ahead and have an alignment performed after replacing any steering component. bring your wheel around. I'll bring that knuckle around. Press that down and in. Now when installing your outer tie rod, you want to go ahead and take note of the hole for the cotter pin on this particular unit. You can use your castle nut. Get that started, and you can use a 21 millimeter socket to go ahead and snug this down. Then you want to torque this down to 52 foot-pounds. Then you want to look for that hole in the ball joint stud and line up one of the notches in the castle nut. It's not quite lining up. So what you want to do is continue to tighten down this nut a tiny bit for that to line up. You never want to back this nut off to line up the hole. Go ahead and take the cotter pin. Slide that through. I'm going to take my pliers here, bend over one of the tabs, and continue to push that on underneath. Flatten that out, and then snip off the excess. Use your 24 millimeter wrench to tighten down your jam nut. You want to make sure that's good and tight. I'm going to take my pliers and I want to go ahead and level out my outer tie rod end here, nice and level here. Now your components are installed. At this point here, we can install a wheel. Repeat this process for the passenger side. Don't forget, anytime you alter a steering component, you need to have an alignment professionally performed. You can take your wheel, line it up on those studs, set it in place. We're going to go ahead and get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once they're all started, I'm going to go ahead and snug them down. Now I want to go ahead and snug these down in a crisscross pattern. We're now going to torque down our lug nuts to 103 foot-pounds. When doing this, you want to do it in a crisscross pattern. Grab your center cap. You want to line up this leg with the opening here in the wheel. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.